The air inside the Helix AeroTech auditorium crackled with expectation. Sleek white panels curved across the ceiling like the fuselage of a jet, refracting light off the chrome floor beneath. Nearly 250 people, engineers in tailored suits, executives with clipboarded confidence, and a handful of invited media, filled the space with the low hum of pre-performance judgment. They hadn't come for a test. They had come for a spectacle. And in the center of that spectacle stood Isabel Grant. She looked as though she had wandered in from the wrong story. Dressed in a wrinkled white blouse, well-worn jeans, and weathered sneakers, she carried no badge, wore no makeup, and kept her chestnut brown hair pulled into a practical knot. A small canvas bag lay beside her, the kind you might see at a library, not at a $3 million aerospace prototype reveal. But this was no reveal. It was an ambush. Across from her, gliding confidently onto the elevated stage, was Maxwell Trent, CEO of Helix AeroTech, a man more famous for his ego than his leadership. His navy pinstripe suit caught the spotlights like armor, and the microphone in his hand was an extension of his theatrical presence. He gave a practiced smile, the kind that didn't reach the eyes, and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice oily and rich, "we at Helix pride ourselves on one thing: excellence. Certified, verified, credentialed." He paused, letting the words land like jabs. "Today, we conduct a demonstration, an open challenge, if you will. A candidate has come forward requesting a position on our engineering team." He turned slightly toward Isabel without looking at her. Despite lacking any formal qualifications, no degree, no credentials, just confidence, and perhaps confusion. Laughter rippled through the room. A few heads turned toward Isabel, their smiles amused, dismissive. Maxwell held up a gleaming wrench, letting the light dance across its edge before tossing it at her feet. The clatter echoed like a gunshot. 30 minutes, he said flatly. Fix what my best MIT engineers couldn't in 3 days. Succeed, and you'll have a job. Fail, and you'll leave the building and the industry permanently. Gasps, whispers, the hum intensified. Isabel bent down to retrieve the wrench. Her fingers trembled slightly. It could have been nerves. It could have been rage. Her face remained neutral, but behind her calm, her eyes flickered with something else. Something older than this moment. Something deeper. They didn't know, not yet. She turned slowly toward the hulking structure behind her. The HX-5000, a prototype aircraft engine sleek in its casing, but dead silent. A masterpiece of design with a hidden flaw that had confounded Helix's engineering elite. Rumors claimed it was unsolvable. Others believed it to be sabotage. All agreed it was a $3 million embarrassment sitting at the heart of Helix's upcoming contract pitch to the Department of Defense. And they had dragged Isabel here to fail in front of it. From the front row, a senior engineer with silver temples leaned to a younger man and whispered loudly, "She doesn't even know what she's looking at." Someone snickered. Another pulled out a phone, ready to capture the fall. But Isabel didn't move toward the engine yet. She stood still, letting the silence settle, letting the weight of the moment like a tension wire through the room. Because while the crowd expected a performance, Isabel had already begun diagnosing. From 20 feet away, she was listening to the residual hum of failed startups, to the minor distortion in turbine pitch, to the inconsistencies in the exhaust vent structure. Her mind, quiet for 5 long years, was awakening like a machine rebooting in the dark. Maxwell's voice cut through the stillness again. "Ms. Grant, perhaps you'd like to quit now before we waste everyone's time." She looked at him finally and smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't ask for permission. It was the smile of someone who had once stood in silence while lesser men rewrote her history. The kind of smile that meant, I've seen worse. I'll begin, she said softly. And with that, she stepped toward the engine, wrench in hand, and the first shiver of doubt moved through the audience. They had come for failure, but they might be about to witness something else entirely. Before she was Isabel Grant, quiet library assistant from the south side of Chicago. She had been Dr. Isabel Green, a name once whispered in elite circles of propulsion theory, a name once stapled to the margins of aerospace history. But that name had been buried 5 years ago, along with a life that no longer felt like it belonged to her. Now, as her hands hovered over the corrupted HX 5000 engine, so eerily similar to the design she once pioneered, those memories came flooding back like an uninvited storm. 5 years earlier, at the European Space Agency's Advanced Propulsion Lab in Geneva, Isabel had stood at the pinnacle of her career. At just 31, she was chief architect of the Mars 5 Pulse engine, a revolutionary system that could reduce interplanetary travel time by 35% using a harmonic pressure fuel modulation technique she had developed herself. She was respected, admired, even envied, and in love. Her partner in life and research was Lucas Venter, a charismatic aerospace theorist with a charming Dutch accent and an enviable knack for networking. Together, they had pushed boundaries, filed papers, and presented to global defense consortiums. They had planned to file the final patent as co-creators and marry the following month in a quiet coastal ceremony. But one night, Isabel returned to the lab for her forgotten notebook and found the lights already on. Lucas stood alone by her console, fingers flying over keys, transferring core research data onto encrypted drives. It took her too long to realize what she was seeing. "Lucas," she had whispered, more confused than angry. "What are you doing?" He didn't flinch, didn't hide. His reply was casual, calculated, cruel. "What I should have done months ago. Aegis Dynamics offered $60 million for this tech. For me, I'm not going to have to waste my life waiting for committees to approve." She had stepped forward, shocked. "This is ours, Lucas, and it belongs to the ESA. You can't—" "Oh, please." His voice turned sharp. "You think they'd credit you? A woman barely into her 30s? You've always been the soft edge, Isabel. The part that made me seem more human. But the truth is, this whole operation moves because of me. You were just helpful." She hadn't screamed, she hadn't cried, she had tried to stop him. But in that moment, Lucas did something unforgivable. He triggered a false breach alarm and claimed Isabel had attempted to steal the engine prototype. Within hours, the lab was locked down, security footage altered, and witnesses misled. The prototype exploded in a controlled failsafe that Lucas had activated to destroy evidence. Isabel was injured badly. Her dominant right hand was scorched, the nerves damaged, the precision she had once relied on compromised. It was, in a single night, a personal, professional, and physical annihilation. Despite her protests, despite what she knew, the investigation was quietly buried. ESA's board chose silence over scandal. And Lucas? He walked free with a golden parachute and a new job, Chief Technology Officer at Aegis Dynamics, the very company now rumored to have sold the HX 5000 design to Helix AeroTech. The betrayal didn't just end her career. It shattered her faith in systems, in people. Isabel disappeared. She left Europe, changed her last name, left her doctorate, her research, her ambition, everything in a locked trunk at a storage facility outside Geneva. She settled into anonymity like it was armor. In Chicago, she rented a one-bedroom apartment, took a job at a community library, and poured herself into helping children from struggling neighborhoods fall in love with science. She never spoke of engines, never used her credentials. She became the woman no one noticed, the one who wore the same sneakers, brought lunch in foil, and never attended staff parties. She chose invisibility, not because she lacked confidence, but because she had learned just how dangerous the spotlight could be. But fate, cruel, precise, undeniable wasn't done with her yet. 2 weeks ago, during a public demonstration at the Helix AeroTech Expo, she caught a glimpse of the HX 5000 in a promotional video. Her breath caught, her pulse spiked. The core design, the frequency resonator matrix, was hers, bent and twisted by people who didn't understand its delicacy, but undeniably built from her architecture. At first, she hesitated. Maybe it was a coincidence, but the more she watched, the more she knew. They had copied her work. And worse, they had broken it. The flaw, invisible to most, was a ticking time bomb at high altitudes. One failure could mean 300 lives lost midair. That night, she sat by her window, staring at the soft lights of the city, her old NASA pin clutched in her good hand. She thought of the children she taught, of the engineers she once mentored, of the trust her team had placed in her back at ESA. And she made a decision, not for revenge, not for recognition, but because what she built was meant to carry people forward, not crash them from the skyline. Now standing before the HX 5000, wrench in hand, mocked by the very people who would someday owe their lives to what she might do next, Isabel didn't shake because she feared failure. She trembled because the past had finally found her. And this time, she wouldn't look away from the quiet mind that saved the sky. The laughter was beginning to crest again. 25 minutes had passed. Isabel's silence had become, to the eyes of the auditorium, confirmation of failure. The engine remained inert. Her hands, already marked by scar tissue and years of withdrawal, moved slowly along the casing. Too slowly, they thought. Her head was bowed, her voice silent. In their eyes, she was unraveling. In truth, she was calculating. Every groove of the HX 5000 beneath her fingers whispered its betrayal. She wasn't just looking at a poorly built copy of her original engine. She was staring at a corrupted ghost of her creation, one twisted by ignorance and greed. The resonance calibration was off by a fraction of a decimal. That might seem small on paper. But at 40,000 feet, where air thins and pressure sinks, it would become a catastrophic vibration that would shatter the internal chambers like glass. This wasn't an embarrassment. It was a death trap. And someone, Lucas, most likely, had sold it to Helix as if it were foolproof. Her stomach twisted, but she kept her expression still. She knew now, walking away meant letting this go to market, letting people dare, letting him win again. She would not walk away. 5 minutes left, Maxwell Trent announced, his voice sing-song, the cruelty thinly veiled. Miss Grant, it appears the toy was too advanced. Another laugh rolled through the auditorium like a shallow tide. Isabel didn't respond. She reached into her canvas bag and retrieved two things. A small, worn NASA pin, its metal dulled with age, and a folded cloth bundle. She unwrapped the cloth with deliberate care. Inside lay a set of specialized microtools, unlike any of the Helix engineers had ever seen. Instruments she had crafted during her time at the ESA, designed to recalibrate highly sensitive pressure systems. Tools no garage mechanic should possess. The room felt quieter. Whispers bloomed in corners like rising wind. Then Isabel spoke. I'll need a Fluke 289 modulator and a Maturo pressure precision kit. Now. Maxwell blinked, caught off guard by the clarity and command in her voice. Excuse me? I said now, so Isabel repeated, still calm but unmistakably authoritative. Unless you'd like this engine to explode during its first high-altitude test flight. James Morrison, the lead Helix engineer and MIT alumnus, stepped forward, visibly shaken. What did you just say? Isabel didn't even turn. The combustion pressure and resonance frequency are misaligned. It'll hold during takeoff and initial climb, but once it reaches cruising altitude, the pressure differential will trigger harmonic vibration. Failure within minutes. Total structural collapse. "You can't possibly know that," snapped Sarah Cho, another engineer who had mocked her earlier. Isabel turned to her, eyes sharp. "The signature error is in the bypass ratio calculations. You're running 15.21 when it should be precisely 14.71. That number wasn't guessed. It was engineered by me." Dead silence. James frowned. "You mean?" "This," Isabel said, pointing to the HX5000's core intake, "is a stolen derivative of the Mars V pulse engine. I designed the original 5 years ago for the European Space Agency." The silence wasn't just stunned, it was disbelieving. Maxwell's face had drained of color. "The Mars V system was classified," Sarah sputtered. "It was designed by Dr. Isabel Green." Isabel met her gaze squarely. "I am Dr. Isabel Green." Gasps broke out across the auditorium. Journalists dropped pens. Phones flew into hands. Sarah took a shaky step back. "But she disappeared, was disgraced, declared dead," Isabel finished for her. "Yes, that was convenient for some." She rolled up the sleeve of her right arm. Beneath the cloth, years of silence and suffering spoke without words. Her skin was lined with scar tissue, the twisted reminder of the explosion Lucas had orchestrated. The same scars that made her an outcast. The same scars that never stole her brilliance. The room was now a still ocean. And then, action. Isabel turned back to the engine. Her movements changed, fluid, precise. Her right hand still trembled slightly, but her tools moved like extensions of memory. Fuel injection recalibrated to 23.7 microseconds. Turbine output realigned. Resonance dampeners corrected. The numbers poured from her like poetry. Numbers only someone with intimate knowledge of the design could know. One by one, engineers stepped closer, the disbelief on their faces replaced by awe. Her commands came rapid fire, her voice now radiating the calm authority of someone finally stepping into the light. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was correcting the record. "Done," she said, pulling her hands free. "Initiating test sequence." The engine roared to life, perfectly. Every gauge on the monitor surged green. The turbine's vibration dropped to optimal stability. The sound, harmonic, rich, unmistakably healthy, resonated through the steel beams of the auditorium. Isabel stood quietly, watching. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply breathed. It was James Morrison who finally spoke, his voice cracked with reverence. "Who are you?" Isabel turned, eyes steady. "The woman you didn't see coming, because you weren't looking for someone like me." Then she stepped away from the engine, her silhouette strong against the glow of the monitor, the NASA pin resting like a silent emblem in her palm. From the quiet mind that saved the sky, the engine's low, calibrated hum still echoed through the hall, a rhythmic, living testament to truth. Yet no one in the auditorium moved. They stood frozen, caught between the brilliance they had just witnessed and the shame curling in their stomachs. Dr. Isabel Green, once erased, mocked, and cast out, now stood tall at the edge of the platform, her scarred right hand relaxed at her side, her NASA pin glinting in the sterile light. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't angry. She simply looked free. Maxwell Trent, once smug and towering, now sat slumped in his chair like a man who'd just seen the walls of his empire begin to crack. His voice came out hoarse, barely audible. This can't be real." Isabel stepped forward, her gaze level. "What's not real, Mr. Trent? That the woman you ridiculed just saved your company from a $500 million lawsuit? Or that your entire engine is a stolen design, dangerously miscalibrated, built on the back of betrayal?" She lifted her phone and tapped a few times. A legal document appeared on the screen behind her, projected via the auditorium's display system. Cease and desist. Property of Dr. Isabel Green. Patent number Mars V03 ASAX4. Red line recipient. Helix AeroTech. Maxwell Trent. Lucas Venter CC'd. Gasps rippled. Murmurs built into waves. But don't worry, Isabel added calmly. I'm not filing it. Silence fell again, thicker this time, confused, disbelieving. James Morrison stepped forward, his MIT class ring gleaming like a relic from a bygone age. You're not. Why? Isabel's eyes swept across the room. Because I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came here to prevent destruction. This engine, my engine, was twisted into something lethal. I couldn't stay silent and let it fly. That was the only reason I walked into this room. She let the words sink in. I don't need your titles. I don't want your positions. I want accountability. Not just for me, but for the next girl building engines in a garage right now, being told she's not enough because she didn't go to Harvard or doesn't look like a real engineer. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. That's what made it thunder. Maxwell tried to stand, faltered. Let me make this right. Public apology, press release, anything you want. Isabel looked at him. Then don't apologize to me. Change your company, change your culture. Start looking at talent through action, not assumption. Sarah Cho, the engineer who had mocked Isabel loudest, now stood with her face pale and tear-streaked. Dr. Green, I'm sorry. Truly, we didn't know. No, Isabel interrupted gently. You didn't ask. That's the problem. She turned toward the young engineers lining the sides of the room. Some wide-eyed with admiration, others pale with guilt. I don't want your praise. I want you to do better. Ask who people are, not just where they went to school. Measure brilliance by contribution, not conformity. Build teams that reflect the world, not just one corner of it. The reporters who had come to cover her failure now stood speechless, their headlines rewritten before they'd ever been typed. A young woman in the crowd raised her hand, voice hesitant. Dr. Green, will you go back to ESA, to NASA? Isabel smiled faintly. No, I'm going back to the library. Confused silence again. I help kids in underserved neighborhoods explore science. We build cardboard turbines and paper rocket prototypes. Last month, a girl asked me if Mars was red or just lonely. That's where I want to be, where curiosity still lives, where no one gets laughed out of the room before they've touched a wrench. She turned to the door, picking up her canvas bag, the same one they'd sneered at hours earlier. At the threshold, she paused, casting one last look at the room. You wanted a story, she said. So here's the ending. Her voice softened. I am not your cautionary tale. I am not your anomaly. I am a mirror you weren't ready to look into. Then she walked out, and no one dared stop her. Message of the story. 1. Dignity is the quietest form of power, and the most unshakable. Isabel didn't need to shout, sue, or retaliate. She repaired what was broken, spoke the truth, and walked away, leaving behind a silence louder than any speech. 2. Talent does not wear a badge. Genius isn't found in diplomas or elite institutions. It lives in perseverance, passion, in the ability to prove worth through action, not appearance. 3. Systems change only when people change how they see others. The story condemns a culture obsessed with pedigree and sameness. Isabel didn't want a title. She wanted the next generation not to endure what she did. 4. Forgiveness is the choice of the strong. Though she had every right to seek revenge or compensation, Isabel chose something far greater, protecting lives and offering a lesson for the future. 5. Rethink how you judge others. Isabel represents the unseen brilliance hidden behind bias. She is not the first, but if someone learns from her story, she won't be the last.